keep my hands on myself. Pick out dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl is in need. Then
I want to just say welcome. My name is Allie Hanel. I'm the Senior VP for Social Impact here at Steel Sports. And I'm joined tonight by my colleague Felicity Day, who is camouflaged in a room full of our Steel United players. Are you there, Felicity, to kick us off? Hey.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Felicity Day. I'm the Vice President of the Steel Experience and the proud coach of our 2009 girls team in Massachusetts, who we have here in the background. So welcome to our Women of Steel Sports Are For You webinar. I hope you find these wonderful, inspiring female entrepreneurs. I hope you enjoy their stories, and please, any athletes, I know we've been working on our questions. Please get ready with your questions at the end, because we will have time to ask the panel what questions you girls have. All right, so we would like to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and to tell everybody how they started, what was their inspiration, tell everybody a little bit about their organization and what it stands for, and then we'll go from there. All right, so Tabitha, you're the first on my screen, so if you would like to start, that would be fantastic.
And I'm just going to really quickly jump in and share Tabitha's bio, and she's joined by her colleague Coley Dietrich. So just a little background, Tabitha Tice is based in Burlington, Vermont, and she leads IDA Sports marketing efforts to bring their women's specific soccer cleats to female athletes across the world. She grew up playing soccer in the Syracuse area. She played collegiately at Siena College, and she's currently a high school coach in Burlington. She's joined today by Coley Dietrich, who is also a part of the IDA Sports team based in Emporia, Kansas. She leads all of IDA's social media and online community building efforts. She grew up playing club soccer in Colorado and is also a former collegiate player for Emporia State. So Tabitha and or Coley, whoever wants to go first, we'd love to hear a little bit about your background and career in sports.
Cool. I guess I'll start. As my bio said, I'm from the upstate New York area. Grew up playing club all around the Northeast and many trips to Massachusetts and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and soccer was my life growing up. Went on to play in college, and then there weren't really pro leagues or anything like that, and kind of just jumped into the workplace and kept playing all throughout my 20s in women's leagues and co-ed leagues. And yeah, I worked in a variety of jobs and industries in my 20s, and then in the last few years, soccer kind of re-entered my life in the workplace, and it all came kind of full circle. Soccer tends to find you at whatever stage of life you're in, no matter what, even if you take some breaks here and there. But yeah, I got connected to IDA 3 or 4 years ago now, when I was volunteering with a nonprofit called Equal Playing Field. And Equal Playing Field advocates for women in soccer and gender equality for women in sports throughout the world. And that's actually how I know Sarah a little bit as well. But Equal Playing Field has this history of setting crazy world records. So they set a world record by playing the highest altitude soccer game ever, men or women, on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So there's a volcanic ash field up there, and they set up a FIFA regulation size field, and they played a match of all women, and they held that record. On that trip is kind of where, I wasn't on that trip, unfortunately, but on that trip, that's where Lori Youngson, who helped lead that trip with Equal Playing Field, that's where she kind of discovered that players, former internationals, grassroots players, youth, whatever, were all frustrated by their cleats. had a hard time finding women's cleats, hard time finding cleats that fit. They were always wearing men's cleats or youth cleats, sizing down and squeezing into kid sizes. She thought that was pretty stupid. Went back to Melbourne in Australia, where she was living at the time, and decided to found IDA. Took an idea, saw a problem, did a lot of research, talked to a lot of female athletes. Turns out our feet are different than men's feet. And sometimes a cleat that's designed for male and they call it unisex, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And there can be a lot of injury implications from wearing gear that's not made for you. So yeah, founded IDA in 2018. I kind of became familiar with IDA through Equal Playing Fields in the last few years. And then they recently expanded to the US. And we make cleats and indoor shoes, hopefully turfs down the line. Yeah, and we're in some Dick's Sporting Goods throughout the US, depending on your city and state, and then available online. So that's just kind of like a high level about IDA and myself. Did I miss anything? I don't know.
I think you did a great job of giving our little IDA brief history. So I'm Coley. I am our online content and community coordinator. I have been with IDA almost a full year now. I got my job here last May, and prior to that, I graduated from Emporia State in 2019, where I played soccer there. And in my head, my soccer career and my life in soccer was over. And as hard as that was, I was trying to move on and got a 9-to-5 job and was like, is this really going to be my life for forever? Just sitting behind a desk. And then I saw this job and I was like, oh my gosh, I can get back into soccer. I can work online and have this great community. And I just feel so lucky to be working alongside some of the most incredible and inspirational women, including Tabitha. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you wonderful people.
Thank you, Coley. Welcome. It's great to meet you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. So Sarah Dwyer-Schick is a soccer coach and an advocate for sports accessibility for all. Sarah spent the first half of her career coaching soccer at the NCAA and NJCAA programs. Since leaving college soccer, she is focused on youth development, working with youth programs from the elite level and on down. She served as the goalkeeping coach and then DOC for the Girls North Olympic Development Program in Eastern New York. Sarah currently serves as the director of coaching for East Fishkill Soccer Club in New York. She's committed to increasing opportunities and access to sports for girls and women. She founded the Sports Bra Project, and we'll share some more information about that soon, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that coordinates nationwide drives and provides new sports bras to programs working in areas where the lack of this piece of equipment can make sports inaccessible. So Sarah, can we turn it over to you for some bio and info?
Sure. I am I guess the best way to call it is first off, it's good to see you girls again after this weekend. Hopefully you had a good second day at the tournament. I am a Title IX baby. I was born the year after Title IX passed, so I had more access to sports than my mom, as she will always tell me. She did wish that the academic rule of Title IX was more interesting to me and that I really wanted to pursue math classes that she did and was denied, but the sports side is what stuck with me. So I grew up playing anything that I could. Soccer was what stuck. It was kind of the generation. I graduated college before WUSA started, so it was kind of in a Division III school. I went to Smith, and if you played one sport, you played them all in high school. Same thing in college a little bit. Multi-sports are still possible at the Division III level. The sport that stuck for me after playing lacrosse and racing cross-country skiing was soccer, and it's kind of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to coach when I graduated, so I started my career at University of Northern Colorado as an assistant, kind of did the coaching climb for a bit, at each of the 3 divisions for a little bit, and coaching club at the same time. But through soccer, I think what all of us do is we get to meet people from different places, and we get to travel and different experiences. Tabitha mentioned the Equal Playing Field events. I went to the one that they had in 2019 in conjunction with the Women's World Cup in Lyon, and the number of connections that came out of that and the people that I got to meet in person for the first time is unbelievable. And I think it's really an amazing network. So the Sports Bra Project kind of came out of that through travels and coaching in Brazil and doing some work with an organization in Namibia and lots of other places around the US. You realize that yes, there's more access, but there's still a lot of barriers. And even if it looks different in New York City, which is about an hour and a half from me, than it does in Namibia or than it does in rural Montana, the barriers are still the same. They're all cultural, logistical, and economic, and they look different. But culturally, if you didn't grow up with your mom playing or anyone else playing, or it's a taboo, you're not really a woman if you play, those are still around to some degree, depending on where you are. Economically, a sports bra, especially if you're larger, can be very expensive. And that's a barrier too if finances are tight. And then just logistical, which I never thought of in the US. Amazon will pretty much deliver anywhere around here, but there's places in in other countries where Amazon just doesn't deliver, and there are no stores. So I think the travel for me just opened my eyes, and sports bras were never anything that was included in equipment. So I brought them on a whim. I went with a different nonprofit, and on a whim, I brought sports bras with us. We'd sent a shipping container of school equipment and soccer equipment over, and I put like maybe 30, 50 bras in my bag. And the woman that we were working with was head of the women's desk in Namibia. Her name is Jackie Kirtza. She's amazing. She does incredible programming, both with their national team and with, it's called Gals and Goals, and they do AIDS prevention education as well as soccer and other educational pieces in very rural communities that, rural in the US doesn't compare to what it is in rural in Namibia. To put it mildly. And I asked, when I told her that I had the bras, she asked if she could come to her national team. And I think my jaw hit the floor because they were in the capital city, they had sporting goods stores, and here was their national team that didn't have sports bras. And I was like, yes. And then fast forward a bit, I, taking all the travel experiences and places, I was like, you know what? I can't change everything. I can't address all of those three things, but we can do a sports bra. And what's been amazing is it was born out of frustration, to be honest, of having to keep bringing it up again and again, just like feminine products and med kits and not wearing white shorts and being the only woman raising your hand in the room going, hey, women's issue, but it's not. It's a soccer issue. It's a sports issue. So coming from that frustration, it's really been amazing. The network of women supporting women across the globe is incredible. And we realize that, sports bra is universal, whether you are a elite level athlete or whether you are a recreational level athlete, whether you're a team sport, individual sport, a sports bra is something we all have, and the need for one is something we all have in common. So the Sports Bra Project kind of came from that, and it's been amazing. I've loved meeting different people, doing different, learning. I'm learning about cricket now. I know nothing about cricket. Soccer is still my favorite sport, but it's been, the conversations are so similar. It's been a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And just a side note, I'm so proud of this, and Felicity's really been a big part of leading the charge, is that we are including sports bras in our kits for our athletes, and so that's, we're trying to follow your lead there. So
you are way ahead of the game.
Next up is Michelle Deloso. And before I share her bio, I just want to, say, you'll hear more about this in a little bit, but the world of sports often comes full circle. You run into people along the way, and maybe you lose touch for a couple of decades, and then you find them again. And Michelle and I are an example of that. So I'm really glad that you're with us here tonight. So a bit about Michelle. Michelle utilizes a love of sport and a passion for the outdoors to change lives, and believes empowering our next generation is critical. She's a marketing consultant that has built programs to inspire others while representing her clientele with creative marketing initiatives, asset management, recruiting, product development, brand positioning, brand management, and has built several cause-based programming initiatives. She has authored and self-published her book, Brand Loyal, which is about her life and career in sports and the outdoors. And she also founded the Rim to Rim Club of the Grand Canyon, as well as the Go Girl program. So Michelle, can you share with us a bit more about yourself and your career so far?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank Allie and Felicity and Steel Sports for hosting us. What a pleasure this is. I think, I'm the big sister of the group, I think, but if You know, if you asked me years ago what my dream would be, it's this, is an empowerment panel, and seeing the next generation of girls and women have these role models. So it's really cool to be a part of it. But I guess my background is in baseball. So sorry, soccer people, but I did play. I ended up playing soccer. I played 6 sports in high school. I grew up loving baseball, and I knew at the age of 12 that I would hopefully one day play professionally. The odds of that are probably 1 in a gazillion. But coincidentally, I switched from baseball to softball because I also saw the College World Series tape delayed many years ago. And I saw women playing a sport and having a chance to get their education and their college degree. And that just moved me because I come from a family, we just didn't have money for college. So for me, I was a diamond in the rough underdog from Quakertown, Pennsylvania, but loved sports and switched over to softball, played 6 sports, like I said, in high school. I believe sports should be fun, so I didn't specialize yet. And then I was graduating from high school, believe it or not, with no offers. I was offered a walk-on opportunity, and I kept believing in myself, using the voice in my head as the loudest that I knew I was good enough. And lo and behold, that summer, I was recruited to go to the University of South Carolina. And the head softball coach asked me, you know, could you take us to the College World Series and be part of a team? I said, absolutely. She didn't need to know I had no other offers, but by my sophomore year, I was waking up at the World Series. So I honored my commitment, and we were in it, and I was named best second baseman in the country, first team All-American. And the only reason I say that is because if you understand my background, the odds were so far against me to even achieve that. So anyway, so I ended up playing college softball, graduating with my degree in sports administration. And I knew early on from the Nike days as branding and messaging that I wanted to change lives via sport, via the industry. So graduated with the degree, and remember that baseball dream at age 12? The Silver Bullets came around, the Colorado Silver Bullets, and they were the first women's team to compete against the men. It was a spinoff of the movie League of Their Own. I don't know if anyone was born during that time right here, but we ended up playing in Major League Baseball stadiums, and I ended up living out my dream as well in baseball. So with that, I took all that energy, signed an endorsement deal with Nike as well as Louisville Slugger. I was the first Nike athlete on a shoe, as far as a deal, not an actual shoe, but the first female softball baseball player on a bat on a Louisville Slugger. So back to our footwear, right? I dreamed of having softball athletes on shoes and working deals to get them the platform to reach our next generation. And I was successful to do that with Louisville Slugger and then Adidas. And now I'm a little bit older, so the industry kind of has a way of hopefully not sending us off to the sunset, but I wanted to continue to empower and bring opportunities to girls and women. So I started the Go Girl program. And then I love to hike. Through adversity, my father had passed and I wanted a way to heal, and I always knew sport helps with that. So I ended up hiking the Grand Canyon from rim to rim, and there was no club, so I started it. So now I reach hundreds of thousands of hikers, and I help them to do that. So that is my bio. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
I have
Michelle.
to ask on Small World, did you play with Julie Cruteau at Silver with
I
the Silver
did,
Bullets?
I
Did
did.
you?
Yes, good friend. Yes. Great figure.
Oh my gosh.
Great female athlete, great person.
Talk about Small World.
Yep.
Julie was a grad assistant when I was at Smith College in their sports a master's program for coaching, basically.
She
Sorry.
broke the ceiling. She broke the ceiling for a lot
Yep.
of people.
I
Yep.
have not heard the Silver Bullets in a long time.
Small world. That's wild. Okay, I think Felicity's going to jump in with a question.
Yeah. So, Tabitha and Coley, question for you as far as, entering into the sports business, and Coley, I love that you said, you thought your career in soccer was done, right? Your playing career's done. And what were the challenges that both of you may have faced in getting into sports after your playing career?
Coley, do you want to take that first, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'd love to take it. So something that was hard for me is, if I'm being honest about my like relationship with soccer, is it was really strained by the end of my college career. There's so much that has to be said about good coaches and good teammates, and when there's a lack of that community, which I definitely felt in my university experience, I kind of pulled away from the game a little bit, and so. I was starting to lose my love of the game. And so one of the things that I have loved about IDA is that that community has really brought back everything that I kind of was missing. And they really, really are all about empowering women in sports and lifting them up. And that's the sort of message that we are trying to send. And because it's something that I struggled with, it's something that I feel really close to. Along with that, I was never a really big soccer watcher. I love to play, but I didn't really follow women's sports as much as I would have liked to. So I felt like entering IDA, I was like a step behind everyone because we're talking about these players that I didn't know about or I'd only heard little things about. So I would say I definitely struggled to get up to speed. And now that I am as into women's soccer as many of my other coworkers, it's just such a wonderful community and atmosphere that I was like completely missing out on prior to this.
Yeah, I would say that like from a career perspective, I just didn't know that these jobs existed when I was considering getting into a corporate job or whatever it is after playing. I think I briefly considered the MLS, and like the only sort of entry level jobs that kind of popped up were ticket sales, and that didn't sound like me. And I have friends in their 30s who are still not realizing all the many ways you can work in women's sports and work in the game. I tell the high school girls that I coach, like, take whatever you want to study, whether it's business or health or, whatever else people study in college, and apply it to something that interests you, is what I tell a lot of my players now. I think one of the reasons, like I said, I didn't know about the jobs that existed in women's sports, but there's just so many ways to work in the game beyond. You could be on the sidelines, or you could be in an office somewhere. You could travel the world, work with a nonprofit. There's just so many options out there, and I think they're starting to come to light. And I think the game is really starting to welcome and needs women's voices in that sports space. So that's one thing, is just not knowing those opportunities existed. My other sort of personal thing is that like I have so many interests beyond soccer that I thought about working in other parts of my interests, whether it's the outdoors, snowboarding, music, all these things. And maybe was a little hesitant to work to bring my passions into a job, right? Because you don't want to lose the love for your hobbies by suddenly making it a job. So it's about finding that balance of, actually, I would say now that I work in soccer, I haven't lost the love of the game by working in the game, at least not with IDA, because it is a really uplifting community, the way Coley described it in the women's sports space. So yeah, kind of a roundabout answer, but.
Awesome. Thank you both. Jumping over to Sarah. Sarah, giving back and paying forward sports opportunities that you've seen in your life is clearly central to what you do. And I know you were with a whole bunch of our athletes this weekend and our teams. And can you tell us a bit more about what our kids and our coaches and young people in the world of sports need to know, and how we can all participate in paying it forward and making an impact in our community and larger world?
So that's a big question. And there's a lot of pieces to that. I love seeing how many girls and women are playing. It is so different from being the only woman or only girl on a field with a bunch of boys at different times in my life. And it's so different from having to hunt for the one girls team or maybe one co-ed team around. So it's amazing to me. I love seeing tournaments like this weekend. I love seeing programs like Steel really focusing on girls and women. Oh, I'm getting an echo. Experiences. Are you guys getting the echo too? Don't know what that is. Let's try.
think it's good.
We'll start that again. Okay. See if that's better.
Hold on, it was me. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, what did I hit wrong? So I love seeing that. What I think really hit me though is that's growing and that's amazing. And it's been like exponential. It's so cool to see go onto a tournament that can have 500 teams and it's all female teams. And to me, that's great. You look at the sidelines though, and most of the coaches are men, and most of the people in leadership position are men. I know I asked you girls this weekend a little bit about who you saw on the other sideline, and I think most of you kind of raised your hand that it was mainly Felicity and maybe one or two other women at times. And for me, I think that's the biggest hurdle. And I want to make sure that while the playing opportunities are there, your next generation isn't sitting like I have often, or like I'm sure the other women in this room have, as the only woman in the room where you have to represent all women. I don't represent all women. I represent me in certain areas, but I want you all to see, and I want that next generation to see what's most important is the sports bra meets an equipment need. But for us, the bigger picture really is, why are we still talking about this? Why isn't it a part of every club's uniform like it's going to be for yours soon, which is awesome. And then normalizing the conversation about women's needs. We still talk about sports and women's sports. Well, it should be men's sports and women's sports, or girls sports and boys sports. It's not sports and then the girls are the difference. You guys are totally normal for needing sports bras and other things. And for me, to have you see women in leadership roles, to see that your needs and experiences are normalized, and then being able to take on that leadership role and host a drive. To me, that's awesome. And hopefully your generation comes in and says, hey, I know how to lead things. Why aren't you hiring me? Is kind of where I am on that one. So the paying it forward is about the bra and providing opportunities. I mean, sports is the only reason I got through school. I probably would have been the most delinquent child and quit, but sports really kept me focused. And did well academically because of them. So it's one of those things I'd really like to see that next generation. So that's me paying it forward. It's not just about the sports bras. It's about everything else you get out of it. And that conversation.
I love that. It's not just about the sports bras. It's a small metaphor for a much bigger career and change in our culture.
And the sports bras, like the shoes too. I used to hunt for Puma. 1 year made a 3.5 men's screw and cleat in leather. I have a size, I mean, when I played, I wore a 3.5, but when I was, older, I'll wear a 4 men's. Yeah, I know, you're laughing at me. In college, I liked them super tight. But now they were like, it's impossible to find. So I'd have to go down to the kids, and they've got little flowers on them and they're plastic and they break. So the sports bra, like the shoes, it's all part of the same conversation. I now wear a 4 men's, so it's not that bad. And Copa comes down to them, so I can still get my leather cleats.
That is a incredibly tiny foot there. My big dogs would like dwarf your little feet there.
It's men's 3.5, not women's, because didn't come in women's sizes until Ida.
Still. That's funny. So it's interesting. A common theme I've heard with Tabitha and Coley and Sarah right now is when you look across the field, who do you see? And when you shop for equipment and apparel, what do you see first? And that's still very much a challenge. And when I was in college, I had my first ever woman coach, and that's 20 years ago, but still, that's not that long ago in the whole scheme of things. And when I met Michelle Deloso, she was the first woman in sports outside of my coaches and our athletic department that was in a career in sports. And it really inspired me to follow this dream of working in sports, even though I didn't know what that looked like. And like Coley and Tabitha alluded, when you just haven't seen someone in your field yet, and it's hard to break in. And so that was sort of an intimidating place to be as a 20-something. And so Michelle, to you, I would just love to know, in terms of career and aspirations, what messaging would you like to share with our kids to kind of develop a vision and then follow their dreams? And how would you encourage them to pursue their career goals, whether in sports or not in sports?
Well, here we go. Are my Go Girls listening out there? I see a soccer group on my panel here. Are you paying attention? This message is for you. All right. Raise your hand for me if soccer's fun. Sports is fun for you, right? It's fun, right? It's why you're doing it. It's a sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
Well, I never wanted to put that enjoyment down. I have to be honest with you. I fell in love with sport. Sport was my first love. Now, mind you, it's before social media. So there were no distractions, no chatter. It was my own voice that tugged me to continue to play. So when I was told that maybe my career was over when I tore my rotator cuff, I knew I wanted to work in sport and do things that are fun. So I never had to put the ball down. And I literally took a job with Louisville Slugger, and Allie was the beneficiary of this, designed the first gloves with my team over there, Vicky Boysaw and others at Louisville Slugger. We designed the first glove that actually fit, fielding glove that fit a girl's hand, right? So we were able to do that. And then that moved over to my job at Adidas, and we wanted to build cleats that fit women specific. And we worked with some of the elite athletes that I was blessed to sign, and we did that. And then we put their name on the cleat. So we not only created a void, we also created aspirational programming. So my Go Girls that are listening, and I know you're listening to this, my message is to follow your passion your whole entire life. Never lose sight of that. What you enjoy doing is your passion, okay? And then develop a mantra. And a mantra for me is adapt, adjust, and trust. Meaning when the pandemic hit, I adapted, I adjusted, and I trusted, right? So those are two things I want you to take home. And then also your mission statement. As you get older and you get to college and you're being asked to choose all these majors and all these degrees, what is it that you want to leave in this world? For me, my mission statement is to inspire. It has always been to inspire, and then ultimately to use that inspiration, love of sport, and now the outdoors to change lives. And whenever an obstacle comes at me or a time that I don't know what I want to do, I go back to my mission statement. Does this opportunity allow me to inspire? Does it allow me to change lives? And if it does, then I let it in. If it doesn't, I let it out. And that's not just in positions, in sports, but also in chatter. I try to really let go of any negative chatter and follow that voice in my head. And I want all of our next generation of girls to feel that any job in sport is realistic for you, because there's a lot of us that paved the way, and there was a lot before us that paved the way. And truly the sky is the limit. So that's what I would want, Allie, for all of these girls watching, for sure.
Thank you. That's great advice. And I understand some of our Steel United kids have some questions. Can we turn it over to our athletes, and either Felicity's athletes or some of our other participants? You can either raise your hand or indicate in the chat. I'm going to be watching the chat like a hawk here, and we'll open it up to our crew.
What was the first?
Kelly's gonna ask the question. Here we go. Okay.
What was one of the first steps you took towards achieving your goal?
What was one of the first steps, and this is to all the panelists, you took in achieving your goal?
Can I jump in on that one?
Go ahead.
I would say getting into places that you might not feel ready for or comfortable for yet. I think that was multiple times that's been sort of the entry into it, is jumping in and thinking I want to do this, and maybe I'm not ready, but maybe I am, and I'm just going to do it anyway and jump into the deep end sometimes, hopefully with someone around to help you.
All right, I would say playing with the boys. I mean, I grew up in a generation that girls weren't playing baseball, let's be honest. And I learned to play with the boys, and get along really well and really work hard, and that was the first step, is just, hey, I can throw a ball just as hard as you, and I can hit a ball just as far as you. Let me play. And they did. So
I would say mine has been like, listen to your gut. And then once something feels right, say yes, and it may not be the perfect thing right off the bat. Nothing is perfect, but it might lead to other things. So my job that I was in before Ida was starting to just feel like it had run its course, and it just didn't, it was kind of like not doing it anymore. And I kept the job, but I started to look and just look around for other opportunities to do something that inspired me on the side. I could fill my free time with something more inspirational. And I saw Equal Playing Fields and literally just emailed them out of the blue and was like, mountains, I love, soccer, I love, women doing badass things, that's awesome. How can I help? Just on the side. I don't know if I should have said that word. And they were like, yeah, come on in. And I just volunteered and did a little bit. And it led to a little bit more. And then it led to this thing. So I trusted my gut and said yes, and just kept saying yes to things that felt right with good people. And then all of a sudden I'm in a job that's really awesome with really awesome people. So trust your gut and then listen to it, say yes.
A common theme that I would also like to touch on is that you're not going to accomplish your dreams in your comfort zone. So you're going to have to push yourself and put yourself into situations that don't feel comfortable and don't feel good in the moment. But that's where you're going to find those goals and those dreams and be able to achieve that. I actually quit my 9 to 5 before I had anything lined up. I was just like, this isn't it for me anymore. I had that same gut instinct that Tabitha was talking about. It wasn't where I was supposed to be. And that same day I saw the job posting for Ida, and it was actually already an expired job posting. So they had stopped accepting applications the Friday before when I saw the posting. And I was like, you know what? What's it going to hurt for me to apply? And I sent a message about, this is my literal dream job. I would do anything for an interview. And here I am. So even if you don't think that you're going to get it, if you don't think you're qualified enough, if you're doubting yourself, do it anyways. What's the worst that can happen? You're already at no.
I think, you've all touched on this element of bravery and getting outside your comfort zone. But then also, Coley, what you alluded to creates opportunities. That job is expired, you apply anyway, you let them know how important it is to you, and all of a sudden you're in the conversation. So you're kind of wiggling your way into the door. And I can say this personally, professionally, some of the young folks that I work with, they're always afraid to nudge their way in and say, oh, I really want to do that. The job doesn't exist. They don't jump in. And so the 4 of you encouraging us to press on and dive in, even if you're a little intimidated or a little unsure, is really great advice. So thank you.
Can I add one quick thing
to
that?
Please. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by how similar some of the things we're saying is. And Michelle, you talked about playing with the boys. I grew up playing with the boys, and I ended up taking, late in my college career stuff, taking a job as an assistant men's coach with a junior college. And most of that team was first generation immigrants, which meant they didn't grow up with girls and women playing. So here's a 5-foot-something woman showing up and telling them what to do. But the reason I did it, and what I did at every game, is if their siblings came, which they often did, and they would have younger sisters, I made sure I talked to each of them and asked them if they were playing a sport. So my encouragement to you is do that. Do something with the younger team. They look up to you, even if you're a little nervous. But I made a point of making sure that the girls saw a woman in a leadership role over their brothers. And to me, that was really important. And that connection, playing with them or coaching them or working with guys, needs to be part of that conversation. And it's fun too. You learn different things from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I want to say hi to Jen Glick and Team Steel Colorado in there. Hey, gang. And I'm wondering if y'all came with any questions you wanted to ask of our panel here. I'll let you marinate on that. I'm seeing a lot of looking around. Not me. I'll let you marinate on that, but we're going to come back to you, Team Steel.
These 09 girls have one more question.
Awesome.
All right, go ahead,
Was there like a special moment, or like what was that moment that made you realize you were doing the exact right thing that help your mission?
What was that moment that you knew that you were where you wanted to be?
I'll take that one. Yeah, so I think when Jessica Mendoza, for those that don't know her, I signed her right out of college. I saw her playing at your level. I had watched her at an event, and I knew that I wanted to sign her to an endorsement deal, and I did right when she graduated from Stanford and her eligibility was up. And I
Can you
remember,
just pause to tell the group who Jessica Mendoza is
yes,
on the off chance that somebody might not know yet?
absolutely. So Jessica Mendoza is and was an outstanding female student athlete that went to Stanford and played at Stanford and then went on to play for the Olympic team in softball, but also became a pioneer in broadcasting. Again, pushing that love of what she does into another arena that she can get paid for in a career. So she was one of the first, I believe, the first female broadcaster for ESPN baseball.
Sunday night baseball. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And so how it started with Jess is we went to an event. It was the NSA World Series in Illinois, and it was going to be Jess's first speaking event in front of 10,000 softball athletes. So I threw her into the fire, and she was so nervous. And she looked to me for advice as a big sister. And I said, Jess, just do what you love to do and speak from the heart. Well, now I think Ali can attest, we cannot quiet Jessica Mendoza. She's on major telecasts. This is baseball season. You'll see her talking it up one-on-one with the guys, just as good, if not better, as a commentator. And that's kind of what I knew. I felt like when I signed that athlete that I knew was the future, it really kind of melted my heart that, wow, we're gonna look out, boys. We're lions. We're coming after you, not only in the sports world, but in the industry of sport. So that's kind of when I knew for sure.
Absolutely. That's a great example.
Did you want someone else to answer that as well, or move on?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I think you go up and down. Sometimes you feel you're in the right place and sometimes you don't. You hope there's a lot more times, you're in the right place if there's a lot more times that's your happy place. I think the first time I really felt that was probably my second job. I'd been coaching out of college, and then I went back to grad school and took a job at a first year Division II soccer program in South Dakota. And I hadn't even moved there yet when I went out recruiting, and I was sitting in a regional tournament in my little folding chair. Like, you guys all know that. You see them sitting on the sidelines with my little notepad, ready to recruit for this team that hadn't even started playing. It's gorgeous and sunny. And I remember this is like 2000, and I'm calling my friend on a cell phone at the time, which was a little different because it wasn't, you don't think screen, think old clunky thing that had like way too many buttons and and almost no texting features. So I remember calling her and saying, I'm sitting here in the middle of, I think it was Iowa that year, watching soccer in the sun, and I'm getting paid for it, and I haven't even moved to start my job yet. And I think I was like, this is really cool. 20-something-year-old me is going, yep, I like this. I'm getting really bad tan lines, and we could do this for a long time.
I knew I belonged in soccer in this world, at least for a time in the professional setting, was in Lyon, France during the World Cup. Sarah mentioned it before. Equal Playing Field does these world records, and the one that I got drawn into was when we set a world record in Lyon for the most number of players to continuously play a 5-a-side match. We played for 4 days straight, over 800 players, constantly rotating in overnight as well. Mm-hmm. And you had to never stop playing. So there were people that played for like 3-hour shifts. There was one crew that played overnight for 7 hours to keep it going. And some people played 15-minute shifts, whatever the minimum was. That was, like I said, a total volunteer project. I took time off from my job that I didn't really like to go do this crazy volunteer thing with a whole bunch of strangers. I don't know if any of you guys went to the World Cup in 2019, but France had like a major heat wave. And it was absolute chaos running this massive, massive world record. We were like chugging buckets of water out to people to make sure they didn't have heat stroke. The French government was telling everybody to stay inside. And we're trying to do this marathon world record soccer game. But my biggest takeaway from that week after like you caught up on sleep and rehydrated was you just sitting there thinking like that's what a team felt like. And we're all team sport athletes. We like working in teams, and in the professional world, it's like trying to replicate that, what you have in like the best soccer team you've ever been a part of. I worked at summer camps. We had like crews that just pulled in all sorts of directions, but we all had the same goal and we were pulling towards that same thing. And it was kind of crazy and a little chaotic at times. And sometimes you argue with each other, but like if you're pulling in the same direction for the same thing. And I found that in this equal playing field project, right? It wasn't a sport per se, it was some other sort of event management thing, but I found elements of that team aspect of like, this is what a good team doing good things feels like. And I went on to try to find that, and I'm always trying to look for that. I think you should in a professional setting, is always trying to find that magic team and the recipe of what makes a good team, and you can take those aspects of like soccer and apply it to the work world or wherever you are. Knowing what makes a good team was kind of a reminder of what wasn't going on in my old job and what I was seeing play out with equal playing field, and being like, that's the direction I need to go, where there's good people pulling in the same direction. And we survived the heat wave, barely.
And no air conditioning in France, so it was hot.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Wow. Those are awesome answers. Thank you. So it looks like Team Steel has a question or two for us. So I'm going to give you the spotlight. We'd love to hear from you.
We were wondering, what was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome in your sports career?
What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome in your sports career?
I can kick this one off. I kind of touched on it earlier, but for me, my biggest challenge was always like the team atmosphere and struggling with, I never grew up on a team that had a really cohesive unit, and I didn't have that experience in high school and I didn't have that experience in college. And so I always really struggled with, like I was always the best player on my team growing up. No one really could compete at my level, and I didn't have the funds as some of my like other teammates did to go play on better teams. I was from Fort Collins, so they would drive up to Denver to play on these ECNL teams, and I didn't come from a family where that was an option. And so I was stuck on this team where I felt like I was the person who had to lift up the team, and no one was really on the same page as me, and that was something I really struggled with. And then when I got to college, I didn't have a really great team atmosphere, and that was something that I never understood as the older players, how you're not taking these younger players under your wings, or if you are one of the leaders on the team, it's your responsibility to make sure that all of the players are feeling seen and heard. And I didn't really have that. And so it's something that I really try and push. I'm actually just starting coaching as well, which is really exciting for me because, like I said, I never had that role model growing up, that mentor. And so being able to step into those shoes and be that for other people is something that I am really passionate about now.
All right, I'll jump in there. Getting hurt was one of the biggest adversities in sport. I ended up tearing my rotator cuff. I mean, imagine you've dreamed of playing pro baseball against the men, and switching from softball to kind of the big league stadiums. We played in all the major league stadiums, and I threw a ball from the warning track. Phil Nieker was my coach. I was a second baseman, but he threw me in right field that day, and I didn't know any better. So I picked up the ball and I threw it from the warning track one hop home, and I felt like my arm went with it. And with that being said, my career was pretty much soon ending because of that injury. And then adapting to having to let my sports career go and finding peace in that. That was one of the most difficult endeavors I had to overcome in sport, for sure.
You're good, Sarah, if you want to drive it.
We can rock, paper, scissors for it if you want.
Yeah.
Words.
You got it.
Okay. I would say the recruitment process for college was hard for me. My family knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. I knew I was supposed to like maybe write some letters, email some coaches. I don't really know how to do that. People told me a little bit. I'm not particularly good at selling myself. Like we didn't really do the video camera thing back then. Like phones kind of have made it a little bit easier for everybody to pull those things together. But I still have players asking me like, what should I edit? Like, how do I become a video editor if you're not paying for those things? I got very lucky that my club coach kind of knew the coach at one of the schools I was looking at or brought it onto my radar. I was a late bloomer, right? So I sprout up in like junior, senior year, and everybody's asking you to commit freshman and sophomore year. And I didn't. I was the very last person to commit to my recruiting class. I was looking at a combination of D1, D2, D3, kind of wondering, could I play at a D1? I don't know. Like every coach has, are you tall enough? Like I didn't think I quite fit the mold, but still trusting your skills and saying yes to a D1 program was felt like a little bit of a risk at the time. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to play, and then went on to be a 4-year starter. But I think the growth spurt eventually hit, and that was helpful. So recruitment process was kind of a challenge, and my parents and I still look back on, a lot of women's soccer are partial scholarships, and there's negotiation to that, and like you don't know the landscape to know, I'm supposed to like ask for a little bit more if I can, or it's just a weird process. I think there are more resources available out there than there used to be. Maybe not. I hope there are. I would encourage, and I imagine some clubs are quite supportive in it now as well, but I got very lucky that I stumbled into a program that worked for me, but it was a bit of a crapshoot, I'll say.
I guess I'll jump in on the last one quickly. I think when I stopped playing was the hardest part of playing. And I think I only knew at the time it was coaching or athletic training. I don't think I realized how many things were out there. And I don't think there were quite as many as there are now, to be honest. But realizing that I could still stay in the sport, even if I wasn't playing for whatever that reason was, whether, I graduated high school and I was going to play college. But when college ended, there really was no place to go. I think there was a women's league in China and Italy and a few other places, but that was about it. So I needed to do something else. And I think for me, that transition was difficult, but I think it would have been easier had I realized how many ways there were to stay involved in sport, not just coaching, not just athletic training. There's tons of stuff out there that I would have, I wish I'd known that now. There's an amazing program at the University of Minnesota, the Tucker Center, and they research gender and media in sport. Oh my gosh, I would have loved that, but I did not know that at the time. So even now, while you're still playing, I'd encourage you to see what's out there, who's around, who are the support people, go to a tournament. What are the jobs that are around there? And I don't mean concession stand, but who's running it? Is it scheduling? Is it refs? Is it management? Is it like physical therapy, athletic training stuff? I mean, there's tons out there. And I think had I thought about that when I was finishing up, it would have made that transition easier because I could have stayed in it. Even though I knew my playing days, age, injury, all that stuff were done, but staying in the game was important to me.
That's universally a challenge for athletes. It's such a huge part of our identities. And then when that time stops, you have to really think about who am I and how do I take what I've learned and transition that to the next phase. So thank you for that. And
so play as long as you can.
Yes. So thank you to our Steel United Massachusetts athletes and our Team Steel Colorado, Fort Collins as well, Coley, I might add. I really appreciate our athletes' questions, and I'm sure there will be more to come. But in looking at, we're coming up on time, and so I just wanted to get the final word from each of our 4 panelists. Any last thoughts you'd like our kids to take away and digest as they go about the rest of their week? And maybe I'll just go clockwise on my screen. So Sarah, let's start with you.
Oh, good. First. Okay. So now I can't cheat off anybody else's answers.
Yeah.
Or get ideas. I think what let's see, the last words that I would say is there's lots of things to do in sports and you belong there. I think that's the most important, whether you are pushing yourself to a higher level of play and you want to keep working at it, you belong in that mix to keep fighting for it. Whether you want to be involved in working in sports, you belong there. And there are going to be people who say that you're not, or you might be the only one in the room that looks like you or has your background. Keep going with it. It's tough, and find your group, find your friends. The network, I'm incredibly grateful for technology, to be honest, and social media. There is an amazing network of women in sports out there that are connected in ways we couldn't have been 20 years ago. So if you have a question or if you are on social media, reach out to them. A lot of people are quite happy to connect on DMs and things like that. And I think that that's, for me, that's the most important is keep going. You belong there. It might not always be comfortable, but you'll find your place. And even if they tell you no, just keep working at it.
Thank you, Sarah. That advice is pure gold. Really appreciate it. Coley, you're up next. Final word.
So we've talked a lot about like following your passions and being brave. And I just want to point out that it's okay if you don't know what that is yet. I graduated from college in 2019 with zero idea what I wanted to do. I got a degree in communication because it seemed like it could go in lots of different directions and I was so unsure. And I just kind of followed the path that life set out for me and I found myself following my dreams. And so it's okay to not know. And when things come up that excite you, that you're passionate about, just remember those, store those in the back of your head for later. But it's okay to keep your options open and you don't have to know right now. And I don't want you to all think that we have just always known we wanted to work in sports. I mean, some of us have, but a lot of us haven't. And we just ended up here in this wonderful space. So follow your passions. If those are sports, we're all here to help. And if they're not, then you'll succeed in that as well.
Thank you. Also great advice. We're going to need to bottle this up. This is really good stuff here. Wow. Okay, Tabitha, over to you. Final word.
I'll keep it short because I'm going to piggyback off of Coley, but just the idea that, like, for me, like, the dots aren't always linear, right? Like thinking of math class, it's not always a perfect line, one after the other, going higher and higher. There's some Steve Jobs quote out there that says something about like, just put dots on the board and then you got to trust that they'll all connect in some way. And it may not be a perfect line and that's okay. Maybe it's a bunch of dots that sort of gradually take you where you want to go. So yeah, put a lot of dots on the board and they'll connect somehow.
Thank you. And our cleanup hitter, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you for a last word.
I love hitting number 4, Allie. I think for all of our Go Girls out there, just find your joy. Find what brings you happiness, whether it's your schoolwork, sports, anything that brings your heart joy, and then stay in joy. Try and follow that. And for me, it was always kind of my own advice was follow my heart tug. So whatever tugs at my heart and feels really good and really pure and really good to me, that's usually a guidepost that you have within you. It's usually seated in you. And like I said, you got to let go of the chatter and just know at the end of the day, even if you feel alone and things aren't working out or you didn't make a team or none of the college coaches that you dreamed of playing for are recruiting you, that not only am I a testimony to the diamond in the rough making it, but that you have an entire group of women that every night we're praying for you to have the opportunities that you dream of. I'll get emotional at that. It's why I'm on this earth. When I see the chat rooms with these next generation of athletes, I want you to know that you're never alone. And some of the hits we took in sports, playing against the men, corporate America, the fights, the things that we had said to us, it was borderline bullying, okay? But we took all that. We took all that for you so that it's easier for you and that you are so empowered to know that everything and anything is possible if it sits in your heart. that, we believe in you. So you're never alone. And even when you feel like you are, you're not, because I guarantee you, we're thinking about you and we believe in you for sure. I wish you all the best in whatever you choose to pursue. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Michelle. Much appreciated. I want to say thank you, Coley, Tabitha, Sarah, Michelle. Thank you for your time and expertise today. What you do for the world of sports and the opportunities and inspiration that you create for our kids and so many others out there. To our kids and our attendees, thank you for joining us tonight. And I hope you will really think about the messages you heard today, because as somebody who's spent my whole career in sports, no better advice has ever been offered in a 60-minute Teams call that I can remember. So this stuff is pure gold, and I hope you'll take it to heart as you navigate your sports career, your professional career, your family, your friend lives. Can't be more grateful to our panel. A couple final things to note. To our athletes, IDA Sports is offering a $10 discount for purchases this spring, and I put the discount code in our chat if you're interested in using it, and we're going to send it out so you can use that and shop and find some great things for yourselves. And then last but not least, we had a great event over the weekend to collect sports bras and funding for the Sports Bra Project. And I've shared that PDF in our chat as well. And Sarah, we will continue to pump that out across all of our social media outlets. And I hope that all of our kids and families can get involved.
Thank you so much for doing that, girls.
One more time. Yeah, thank you to
it was awesome to meet you,
United
and you raised over $570.
Wow, that's
which is awesome.
Yes,
In one
and
day, which is very
counting.
cool. So thank you. I love seeing all you taking care of the booth and everything else. That was great. Exactly what it's supposed to be.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.